Two trades, one winner and one loser, and I'm up, technically green, just over 0.5% on the day.
Hi everybody, I'm Emily from the channel Mindfully Trading, and in this video I'm going to break down my recap from the two trades that I've taken today. Now, although it is technically a green trade recap, I couldn't help but still be really frustrated after I took these trades because I seriously cut a winner way too short, which is really frustrating. And then the second trade, the one that was a loser, I could have actually gone out of that with profit as well. So it's all lessons, but at least on this lesson today, I am finishing green, so that's one consolation. My original intention for today's trades was to finish green because of the day of recording this, it's actually the 1st of October. So I really wanted to get a really good day down and just build a little profit cushion for the month. You know, 0.5%, it's not quite the thick profit cushion I was looking for, but it's technically green. So at least I'm starting October in the right colour. So let's jump onto the computer and let's break down the trades from this morning.
Hey everybody, so just before we dive into the trades that I took, I just want to share the background on them both. So I took them in the London breakout session around about 8 o'clock GMT, and I actually got into the pound yen first, and a few moments later I then got into the euro Australian dollar. So I was in both positions at the same time, which I have done before, but it's not something I'm particularly enjoying because I do think it really does take the focus away, and I think that for better trade management, personally for me anyway, I think I perform better when I'm in one trade at a time because I can give it all my attention, all my focus, and the idea being I can manage it and perform a lot better. So let's have a look at the pound yen. So this morning I was having a look on the larger time frame. So I started off doing top-down analysis here. So looking at the 4 hourly, and we've been in this strong downtrend. We've kind of curved up here, and then we seem to be pulling back a little bit here. And I've got these lines marked, which represent, the straight lines represent some resistance or support on the 4 hourly chart, and the dotted line is relating to the daily. So they are the pivot lines that I use here to represent market structure and significant points where I think price action will respond or react to. Now, as I was looking at this on the 4 hourly, as you can see my forecast here, I was actually looking with a short bias, which at the time may not have made much sense because we were curling up as part of this pullback. But I was looking at this dotted pivot line, and to the left we had this area here where we'd had quite a lot of consolidation. And what I was interested in was if we couldn't get a close above this dotted line, I felt like there would be room for a move down. Even though we do have these other resistance lines here, I still felt like we could have got some moves and some potential trading opportunities there. Now, although when I was looking at this, the 4 hourly candle was open. I haven't actually got it open here just yet, but as I was looking at it and as it was coming to the end, it was looking quite bearish. I know that's not quite a certainty because a candle open is not one you can really take as a signal, but I was gauging that together with the smaller time frames just to see whether I felt like it would be more short biased or not. Moving down onto the hourly chart here, I've got the backtesting tool erase the present data. So I've got this up until the closing 7 o'clock candle in the morning. So this is what I was looking at the time, and we'd had this sharp move up. We'd had quite a few series of retests above this line where price action couldn't quite close above, and then the hourly candle actually closed here, and it was a red. It wasn't a total bearish pin bar candle, but we did have this quite large upper wick here and the smaller body towards the bottom, so I felt like that was quite a bearish sign. After I'd looked at this on the larger time frames, I then switched to the smaller time frames, which is what I use for my trade executions. So I was mainly looking at the 15-minute chart here. And what I saw was as we got above this pivot line, we seemed to be losing momentum, and then we'd actually come back down with a strong bearish candle here and close below. Now, it was actually at this point here, at the low of this 15-minute candle, that I did get short. So using the 15-minute chart, I was basically looking at this sort of level where we'd seen this kind of resistance here, and we were sitting above that, this 136.41. As the price action broke below that, I decided to get short, which was, I consider, a much more risky entry because I like to use candlestick pattern signals to get into a trade. So if there's a bearish or bullish engulfing candle or something that fits my plan, and this actually didn't fit my plan, I just decided to get short at that point. So I'm not super happy with the way I did get into this trade, but let's just see how it works out. So I entered the trade at this point here on this candle, and immediately it started to rise back up, and it actually came really close to my stop. I set my stop at the high of the move up here at 136.63, and price action actually came up to 136.58, so it became 5 pips away from my stop loss order. But I was watching it. I wasn't ready to cut the trade just yet because I did believe in my idea and I wanted to give it some room to move, so I decided to just watch it. And then we had this crazy candle that came in just after 8:30, where we had this huge drop down, as you can see. At this point, I couldn't believe it because I was in the other trade as well, and I was looking at my other trade, and I glanced back and saw that it's 5 pips for my stop. I looked away, I glanced back at the charts, and suddenly it was 20 pips below my entry, and I was like, wow, what's happened? So obviously this is a really good sign because I was then in the green. But then I switched to the mentality of having to manage this trade, and I think I was far too quick to respond to this in the sense that I brought my stop loss down. So I moved my stop loss order from this point up here, and I actually brought it at first to my break even, and then I decided to place it down at this level here, 136.10. Although my original profit target was actually at 135.98, which is 1.5%. As I saw this huge drop down, I felt like we had potential movement to this level here, which represents some resistance, the next level of resistance on the 4-hourly chart, which is 135.71. So I felt like I wanted to extend my profit target to begin with to 2%, which was at 135.85. And then after that, I was looking at this 135.71 level. However, as you can see, price action started to pull back a little bit, and as it had dropped, I decided to trail my stop, which I felt was far too quick because it only just started to move out, and straight away I was bringing my stop loss closer. I didn't give the trade enough room to move, and as a result, on this move here where it actually pulled back, it triggered my stop. So I ended up getting out of this trade at around about the whole pound. So I got a 1.4R or 1.4% profit on this. So it was good. You know, it's good. It's a positive risk reward. I won. It's green and it's good. But I couldn't help but be really frustrated because I don't think I managed this trade as effectively as I could have done. There would have been numerous different ways of treating this. So I could have, for example, sold half when I hit 1% and then kept my position because I knew that I had the range really to get down to this level here, but I didn't. Alternatively, I could have just left my stop at break even and just watched it to see what it did because it only just started moving. So I had all these thoughts in my head. So instead of being happy I won, I was like, oh no, why did I do that? Why did I get out so soon? And then this happened. So as I got out up here with 1.4% profit, meanwhile the pair continued to sell off, and it actually blasted past the next resistance zone I had laid out here at 0.70, and it ended up going to a low of around about 135.40, which is really frustrating because I could have stayed in and rided another 60 pips out of this move. So if I use my tool here just to gauge that, if I'd have stayed in, not that I would have held the whole position, but it would have come very close to 4%, around about 3.75% the move. So technically, if I'd have sold half my position at 1%, I could have left half of my position running well until 3%, which together with the other half size position meant that I could have got a nice 2% move. But I definitely feel that I could have managed this trade better, where I was still managing my risk but not cutting my winner off immediately, which is what I did. So I'm a bit frustrated about this, but I'm trying to be positive because I am still green. As it happens later in the day, if I just let this run, we had the same crazy whipsaw movement back up into new highs. So as the New York session is continuing now, I believe it's probably shifted the other direction. So at least I did manage to get a little piece of that pullback. The next trade I'm going to share with you is the loser that I took today, and I know that I'm going to struggle to really explain this because I don't think this was a good trade at all. I went against my plan, I went against the trend, I didn't even really have a clear entry signal, so it's not that good. But I was basically watching, this morning the Australian dollar was very strong, and I was drawn to the Euro Australian dollar, and at first I was looking on the 4-hourly chart. And as you can see, we've been in this uptrend here, and then we've kind of peaked, and then we've just been coming back down again. And what I was looking at, again, I had these points of market structure plotted out on my chart, and this dotted line here is a daily pivot, and we were just, price action was just consolidating above this. And what I was interested in, that combined with the 200 moving average on the 4-hourly chart and the 20 moving average on the daily chart, I thought that these areas of confluence may work together and give some resistance that will result in a bounce. So I was looking at taking this for a long position. Moving down onto the hourly, I mean, I can't help but just see how risky this was, because we are just clearly in this little range here, and ordinarily I'd be waiting for a clear break outside of the range and then maybe following the trend, but we have been in this overall downtrend. So for me to go against that, I acknowledge that is a very risky move. And what made it even more risky is that I actually took my entry on the faster time frame, so 5-minute, which isn't one I usually use. But what I was looking at was that, again, with this pivot line here, we had this clear bounce here rejecting this move, and then we came back up. So we had this move down, we came back up here, and I was looking to get a second bounce, aiming for it to then carry on up to the upside. That was the move that I was looking to take. So ideally, I should have waited for it to at least come a lot closer to this pivot line, which is at 1.63227. Instead, I decided to get long at this point here, which is 1.63310. So I got in about 10 pips higher. So I was using an 18 pip stop for this, and I placed my stop just below this pivot line, and then using my 1.5% target 27 pips up here. Now, as I said, as I got into this trade, I was also in the pound yen, and it was pretty much just after I got into this and set both my stops and target orders that the pound yen started to move, and it took my attention, so I was focusing more on pound yen. So here we came down, and at this level here where it was holding this is where I feel would have been a far better entry, as close to that area of resistance that I was using as possible. However, we started to test this line, and on this dip here below the pivot line, I was very close to cutting my loser, because I felt that if it did cross that resistance line, then it was most certainly going with the trend and I'd want to get out. So I was already kind of watching this to try to cut a loser, but I didn't actually cut it then. I waited for it to close, and it did close above, so I was watching it. As we got this move up here, putting me into profit, I felt like the trade was taking off. And then, as I said before, I was watching my other position. So I wasn't actually watching this at this time. Now it hit this 4-hourly horizontal ray line, which again was acting as this upper part of the channel. You know, I'm in this trade and I'm in the middle of a range, so it's just not a good trade. Again, it comes down to try to test the lower part of this. And just before this candle here, I'd actually altered my stop. So my original stop order was 1.6313, and I actually changed that to 1.6319 just to try to cut that a little bit, because I was watching the other trade and I didn't want to miss this if it did actually start to go and break this resistance line to the downside. The frustrating thing is that on this candle here at 920, and this literally tapped my adjusted stop loss, so effectively got me out of the trade. And then as soon as it did that, it bounced back up. It carried on consolidating, and then it bounced back up again. At that point, I had come out of the pound yen trade with profit, and if I was still in this trade at that point, I would most likely have just gone out of the trade, because I had a nice win, and I would have wanted to have stayed in a risky range trade, not when I had a nice win. I'd rather just get out. Unfortunately, it kicked me out with a small loss, so it took away some of my winnings from the pound yen trade, which I guess is where the saying trade the best and leave the rest comes from, because this is not a good trade and obviously it's made me lose. It did carry on up a little bit more, but as far as I know now, I'll just sort of skip through time. But present day or present moment, it is still in this range, still consolidating. So coming out of that and putting it back to the present moment, as you can see here, if I hadn't adjusted any of my orders, I would technically still be in this trade, but it's not a brilliant trade. It's still consolidating. I think that overall on the larger time frames, it has been in the strong downtrend. It's probably just pulling back to try to find some strength and liquidity before being able to blast further down through this pivot line. So I'll keep an eye on it. So jumping into my trade records just from today's trades, the 1st of October, at least after those two frustrating trades, does trading ever get less frustrating, guys? Let me know below in the comments. It's just what trading is. It's just managing these emotions all the time, because that's what it feels like. But hey, I'm still really loving it. It's awesome and I wouldn't change it for the world. But as you can see, two trades, one winner, one loser. At least I've managed to have a bigger winner and a smaller loser. So my tiny profit as per the small position sizes that I'm using with my small account to practice, and 0.75%. So I've started October off green. Green is good, right? Let's see if I can keep it up. If you saw my September recap, if not, I'll add a link above to that video. But if you saw that video, you'll probably know that although I've been switching around with my trading plan, now I'm very much focusing on day trading Forex. And that's my goal for October, is I really want to see the month through actively day trading when there is a trading opportunity, a potential trading opportunity. And my goal for October is simply to be green. I really want to just keep consistent. I want to be patient and manage my risk effectively, and my goal is to be green. So fingers crossed. I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway, guys. If you've got any questions or comments, do leave them below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already part of the channel. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.